Welcome back to Tech for Thought, where we dissect the latest trends in AI, finance, and technology. In our previous episode, we explored Bitcoin's volatility, AI's environmental impact, and the expansion of decentralized finance. Today, we're switching it up a little bit. We're excited to have on a special guest, Carvey. Thank you for joining us as we dive into human AI relationship. So, how did you guys meet, Saab and Carvey?
Yeah, well, I guess. Barbie, do you want to go?
Yeah, Sahib and I worked together at RSM, and that's kind of how we met. He was always in our office in the corner that we sat in, and yeah, we just started talking, and here we are.
It was vibes.
It's just
Claimed
Nice.
his desk in the corner, not allowed to
What
touch.
Though
what
though my desk has been taken over by a new hire, so I
Oh,
got to send a new desk.
wait, which
Sad.
floor? Which floor were you on again? The 13th?
It was 34.
34. Why did I think the 13th?
I
Anyways,
know,
there's
man.
not even a 13th floor
There's
in
no 13th floor.
elevators. 34, man. That's cool.
Yeah, it's usually just like a small corner that business applications sits on, more specifically ERP. But yeah, new hire took my desk, so had to find a new desk, unfortunately.
We got to get that back.
I mean, they booked the desk out like a month in advance, so
No way through what's it called again?
it was Agile Quest. Yeah.
Agile Quest. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, people always do that.
to be fair, you used to do that, Sahib.
I do. I still do.
guilty
I
as
would
charged.
I'd see it, dude. Everybody was serious about their desk. Like they'd have it booked for months ahead. It'd be
Oh
like,
yeah,
dang, like
I've gotten kicked out. I thought there was an understanding that
Not anymore.
yeah, no, not anymore. It is cutthroat to get a desk in the RSM office.
wow.
Good thing we don't have a mandatory RTO though, because otherwise,
True.
I don't know how anyone would get any work done.
We have too many people in the office.
Yeah, for real.
So you started off in biz apps, correct? And then you switched over to e-commerce or the commerce department. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I started off on our D365 practice at RSM, working with D365 finance and operations. I used to be on the functional side. I would do mainly production stuff, some security within D365. But then I made the switch to the e-commerce team, which currently sits as like a small subsect of D365, although we don't actually work with any Microsoft products anymore. We work with Shopify, and our main offering is implementing Shopify Plus for our enterprise clients. I primarily work as a project manager, and a lot of the exposure that I have on that side is with our B2B clients.
And
Nice.
as you may know, our podcast is more tech and finance focused, so you're a perfect fit. I was going to ask to segue into our topic today. Do you utilize AI on your day-to-day job?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I mentioned, I work as a project manager, which involves a lot of client relationship management. And sometimes you just need AI to write an angry email for you.
100%. And then tell it to remove the angry part.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. AI is good at having that kind of unbalanced, unbiased. When it doesn't recognize the context of what you're talking about, it does a good job of stripping that all out. So I've used it many times to refine emails. I use it a lot of times to review code as well.
Mm.
While I personally am not a developer, there have been times where I have to look through code, sift through code, understand it to essentially figure out next steps, whether there's a bug in our current implementation or if I'm trying to help solution something, understanding the code without actually having to do all the background knowledge and gain all the insights on like how does JavaScript work, how does React work, how does Liquid work, all these other technologies that I've never been trained on. I can now use AI to understand it specifically for the task at hand. And through that, you input some code every once in a while, you ask the AI to interpret it, and then through that you kind of you learn the patterns. So then your
Mhm.
reliance on AI to do some of these things really goes down. So not only has AI helped me with the tasks at hand, I feel like it's also helped me just overall learn a brand new system that I'm working with.
Yeah, so many practical use cases for AI. I mean, Sahib, me and Sahib were just before this, we're talking about what models we use for just writing emails. We're talking about I use Gemini, use Claude.
Yeah, I
Um,
use Claude personally.
Claude,
I
yeah.
just like the way it talks.
Yeah, it has, I mean, like, and it's just the practical uses of it is there's a lot, it increases your productivity, it skyrockets your productivity because it takes, kind of like those monotonous tasks that soak up your day and it just shortens that. And I think it's great just for productivity reasons but yeah, so can you share an example of like maybe personally something that you've seen where AI has been like a really good productive use for you? I know you mentioned coding, but was there anything else aside from that?
Yeah, so I think code and email writing is probably the most common use case. But in addition to that, I use AI a lot, even in my personal life. I think I don't know if everyone has the iPhone 16 or is familiar with Apple Intelligence, for example.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of been a game changer for me just because I can keep my phone on do not disturb, but they have like AI running in the background to discern what notifications may be important. So if someone messages me something and they're not in my, like my do not disturb
Mhm.
bypass list, if they message me something like, "Oh, like do you want to meet up tomorrow?" or like catching phrases like that which do require an immediate response, it surfaces those notifications for me. Teams, Slack, those notifications automatically, even though I'm on do not disturb, it'll bring those up. So it's helped me spend a lot less time on my phone because if I am waiting for a response from someone, I can kind of trust that my phone will automatically surface those notifications. I also really like the text summarizing feature or the notification summarizing feature.
I hate that. That
Really?
sucks.
I feel like it's
Dang.
pretty spot on for me. Also, like, who are you talking to, Sahib? That it's
I mean, the AI on Apple Intelligence to me kind of just sucks. I mean, it might help. Obviously, the notification stuff is good. It's not too difficult to implement. But I think the one of the big issues when it comes to Apple Intelligence is the fact that it's not cloud-based. It runs directly on the phone. They say security reasons just so that your data gets kept there. But I personally despise the text summaries because it if there's like 20 messages and it only gives you like two sentences, it's like a terrible, terrible summary.
I will say sometimes the summaries are also very comical.
They are, that's true.
I
True.
it I feel like sometimes the AI takes itself too seriously, and someone may have just texted like an offhanded joke, or every once in a while you have friends like Sahib who'll send something very questionable, and then the text is
Wow.
hilarious. It summarizes it very professionally. So the text itself
That's so
is
funny.
something unhinged.
I never
So
do anything unhinged. What are you talking about?
would you
You
say
gotta
would you say you trained your AI well for your phone?
I
I
don't.
guess I guess it uses you to guys I guess learn what you prioritize, right? That's what you mentioned. Like you can have usually what would be silenced is now popping up because it knows what you would prioritize, right?
Yeah,
So I guess that's maybe also why they're keeping it out of the cloud is because imagine if Apple used all of its iPhone users and used all of their data to train how their AI would work. Yes, they would get amazing data, but that is kind of concerning on 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 privacy reasons.
Yeah, I mean they could have like a toggle or something that, that says don't train on my data, but um and they could still have it run in the cloud and still have decent compute capabilities. But currently, as it stands, it's not very good in my
That's in the
opinion.
next patch. Don't worry.
The
The
next
next
patch.
patch.
I'm pretty sure Apple's having some issues with its AI. They actually postponed their next Siri launching or whatever. No, um, or actually, I think they postponed it indefinitely. And I think they're just having tons of issues trying to get AI integrated into their system. And I think Tim Cook at some point was just like, we're not going to have it on our systems anymore because I think they were just having such a hard time where I don't think they feel they'll get enough utility out of it.
Mm.
So we'll see. Um,
We'll see indeed.
might just be like a marketing scheme, but who knows?
As it often is.
For the most part, yeah.
But it
Uh,
works.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think going back to the code thing, I've seen more recently a lot of hiring managers at like tech firms or just hiring managers who are just hiring developers in general, have been allowing AI use in their like developing interviews and stuff, where they've kind of stopped using leak code, but going to more practical examples, and then allowing the actual people who are being interviewed to use like these LLMs and stuff to code. But a lot of times what they're seeing is that a lot of developers are just sending in the code that the LLM is generating without any critical thinking or being able to
Mm.
actually explain any of the code. And while I think LLMs in general can complement humans when it comes to code generation, I think there's a big gap of where a lot of developers, especially younger developers, have relied on AI so much that we just have like a whole string of developers that don't actually know how to understand the code that's being generated and don't know how to actually fix the code to make it more scalable, allow for user authentication in their coding, et cetera, et cetera. So while AI can be helpful, I think it can also be a crutch.
Yeah.
And I think people need to understand that AI is not the end all be all greatest. It can hallucinate. I was actually talking to my brother yesterday, and he was asking me a question about how much the U.S. spends on something. I don't remember what exactly it was, but then we asked it a different question, but along the same lines, and it gave a different answer. And we were like, if that doesn't show AI hallucinations, I don't know what does.
Yeah. Yeah. Hallucinations are really pro, especially like when you use it often. Like the other day I was using ChatGPT for, it's really good at summarizing documents, I find. So
Mhm.
like if you get like a boatload of documents that you're supposed to review and you don't really have the time to go through each and every single one, it's really good at summarizing, giving you the gist of it in each document.
Right.
I input some documents and I used it so much that it gave me a hallucinated answer because it showed me a document that wasn't even in there. It was like
Wow.
a
Jeez.
document in the previous, like one of the previous queries that I wrote
Right.
for ChatGPT. But
That's interesting. I guess
yeah.
that's one of the detriments of the new memory feature. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's funny. I mean, the new memory feature is cool. Like it
Hmm.
understands me. It knows who I am, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, definitely an issue with hallucinations, I guess, judging from your use case,
Yeah,
in your
yeah.
example.
And
But
Yep.
I guess my question for you guys is, do you think this dependency or this crutch, like you mentioned, Sahab, is only going to get worse as AI progresses and as the new generation obviously uses it as its first beginning, like fundamental, uh, I guess, crutch? Do you guys think that's going to get worse over time?
Dang. That's a really good question. I don't know.
I think overall, once people start noticing that people are using AI as a crutch, I feel like the world has its way of equalizing itself and adapting. Ultimately, what needs to get done needs to get done. If you have a slew of engineers like 10 years from now who can't properly debug because they used ChatGPT for their entire career, the world has its way of, weeding those people out, and, ultimately things will equalize on their own. But I think what that means, as from like an individual perspective, what we need to do as young professionals ourselves in the tech space is understand that our competitive advantage throughout our career will a lot of it will be based off of how effectively we can use AI to improve our productivity without jeopardizing our skill set. And so, at least for me, well, I'm more of a PM, right? Not I'm non-technical, right? I don't write code. That's not what I'm paid to do, but I have to be able to interpret it. I have to be able to read it. And every once in a while, it could be expected that I do have to indeed write something simply because we don't have the resources. That being said, do I have the same expertise as our developers? No, but I know that I can confidently be like, okay, if we need to resolve this bug because we're on a time crunch or whatever, I can do that because I know how to use AI effectively. I know how to understand the context, right? And these are things that AI hasn't helped me with. That's just like knowledge that I have because I understand the technology that I'm working with, right? And so, supplementing your existing skill set and your existing knowledge, combining it with AI to figure out where you have weaknesses is really where, as young professionals, we should focus our energy on as we develop ourselves professionally. At least that's kind of how I see it. And that's how I've been getting through life and my job
Mhm.
because I realize, oh, like, do I I my coding background is in Python and R and these data science languages, but now I'm in e-commerce. We use front-end frameworks. I have never been given any kind of formal education training on how front-end works. And front-end, like React and all of that, that's a whole nother beast. And so that's a weakness that I've identified in my skill set. But I can use AI to supplement what I already know, what I already understand to help it. Now, that I don't think I'll ever be, like a senior engineer. That's not really where I want my career to go. And so that's fine for me. But people who do see their vision that way, who do want to, go down the route of being, like senior engineers and architects and all of that, they're more at risk for relying on AI as a crutch. So at least that's how I see it.
Yeah,
Right.
I completely agree with you as well. I mean, there's so many practical uses for AI. I just wanted to add that in there. Sorry, Sahib, go ahead.
Yeah, I think AI in general is great. And I think that we as a society need to get past this kind of hype train that has kind of pushed AI to, or pushed the false narrative of how good AI is to the forefront, especially on platforms like LinkedIn, where you see like one model comes out and then you see like 20 of these LinkedIn influencers like this is like the next big thing, the next coming of the first iteration of ChatGPT that broke the internet. And I think that if we want society in general to move forward, we don't necessarily need to shy away from AI. Like when it comes to like education and things like that, I think we need to figure out a way to utilize the, like Harvey said, the technology to kind of augment ourselves, um, and augment the way that we do, like plan our, um, let's say plan our, if we're a teacher, plan our kind of our syllabuses, syllabi, et cetera, and know that people will be using AI, but then kind of make the syllabi more critical thinking, et cetera, not more. I know when I was young, we had to read books and like summarize them and write kind of short papers like that, but I think we need to do like a shift now where we need to go push more towards more critical thinking, figure out ways where AI lacks and kind of where humans excel and train those areas of ourselves and our personalities, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think going back to what like was said, it's at the end of the day, it's just supposed to be kind of like a tool to add to your arsenal, right? It's
Hmm.
not supposed to
yep.
replace you fully, and that's the fear with the young generation is that like my siblings are in high school, and what do they use? They use AI for like now assignments like in the past like you had to write summaries about books like you mentioned. Now everything is just easily done like that. So teachers are also going to have to adapt and assign new type of assignments that kind of are AI proof or not fully AI proof, but require, like Sahab, you're mentioning, more critical thinking that, that a normal language, like a learning model can't, it can't solve easily. Or if
Right.
it does solve, then the teacher can again remove like some type of creativity points or stuff like that, because most likely it's going to be using something that is pretty common, not someone's original thought.
Yep.
Um,
Right.
Yeah, and I think they even started to use like LLMs for educational use. Like I remember we talked about Anthropic. I'm looking
Mm.
it up right now. It seems like they have a Claude for Education tier. So like it allows yeah, it allows students, faculty, and other staff to access Anthropic's. So it looks like it's an AI chatbot, and it's a learning mode for to develop their own critical skills rather than simply obtain answers to questions. So I mean, that sounds like good news. At least maybe there's some practical uses for it. But one thing's for sure, I think the next generation, I mean, it's going to be out of this world. I think that they're going to be so technically well versed because just being exposed to all these, LLMs, it's like when we had the internet growing up or something similar to that. It's like the internet's not that old, but and AI is just changing the entire landscape of everything. Just like operations, logistics in every industry. There's practical uses everywhere.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
crazy how fast technology has just advanced in general.
Mm,
We had the internet, what in the I forget when the internet came out, like the 80s or something,
yeah.
when the first like internet was devised. And now we have these tiny, well, not really tiny in the sense of how big the models are, but we just have these like basically tiny people in our devices that tell us things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
I also
uh
think it's very interesting, like you bring up like when the internet came out and stuff, and just kind of how things like this define a generation, right? Because you had millennials who grew up with the internet, then you have Gen Z who grew up with smartphones and mobile devices, and that was the technological innovation that defined the whole generation. And now you have Generation Beta, who, well, Gen Alpha is in there too. I don't remember what their thing was. Who
I think
cares?
it's 96 to 2007 or something.
That's Gen
that's
Z.
Gen Z.
That's Gen Z. Okay. I
Yeah.
gotcha.
Gen Beta actually
Gen
started
Beta.
this year. So the first Gen Beta babies were born in 2025.
wow.
Means that
Wow.
they are being brought into a world like they will never know a world without AI.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see how that plays out, how those kids turn out, and how AI ends up defining that generation. Because I think that AI will be their defining, technological moment in the same way it was iPhones for I think us. I don't know how old y'all are. For me, it was like smartphones. I'm in Gen Z, but for Gen Beta, for them it'll be AI. So it'll be very interesting to see.
So it's
Yeah.
mainly millennials having betas now, and I was that's just a funny thought that came to my head. But what I'm
Coming up, Sahib.
what I'm trying to mention is I feel like you mentioned earlier, like the world has just a way of keeping, I think, things in like a balance, right? So while we have fears and concerns that the new generation will use it as a crutch, I have a feeling that it's usually the parents or like the families of those new the new generation that keeps them kind of grounded in the old traditional ways, right? So for example that comes to mind is like there was a huge concern in the early to mid to late like 2010 2000 there, like about gaming for new kids, right? Like people were playing on Xbox or PS3 and stuff like that. But parents were still, they were seeing the headlines, they were seeing the concerns about, everyone's focused on this. This is the new future. This is the new technology. People are not going to go outside. But parents saw this and kind of, I think there was a big push or emphasis in the social media and on news to like push kids to go back to touch grass essentially, right? So what I'm trying to say is there's always going to be some type of pushback from for example, millennials in this case, who have the kids as betas. But yeah, that's just my
Yeah.
take on it.
Yeah.
So there's going to be balance. That's what you got to hope for, right?
Well, you bring up an interesting point because a lot of the video game hype, like kids will always be inside, yada yada, all of that stuff, that was at least during my childhood, right? And some parents may have made sure that their kids were not too dependent on this. Video game culture has evolved into a whole nother thing. It's a whole community with its own social norms and everything. It's a world in and of itself. And so a lot of the concern was, oh, these people are isolating themselves if they just keep playing video games. Well, not really. Now it's a social activity. In addition to that, the people who maybe like didn't get into video games, I think, we're young adults now when all of that was happening. We're young adults now. And I think in the past couple of years, there's been an increase as adults for our recreational playtime to be something that is more outdoorsy. At least I've seen it a lot living in the city of Chicago. You know, like pickleball. The rise of pickleball. Like I said, everything has its way of balancing itself. Maybe we did spend too much time indoors, but it's correcting itself in our adulthood because that need for wanting to be outside, wanting to socialize is human. It's there. So regardless of the technological implications, I think there will always be something to counteract that.
Speaking of pickleball, I learned recently that somebody went to some like osteo clinic where they deal with like injuries and bones and stuff like that and joints, and they went around asking uh what is one activity you would not do based on all of the injuries you've seen lately, and 99% said pickleball.
Stop.
And one of the ladies was like, yeah, it has to do with the fact that these like 40-year-olds who are millennials just decided that after 20 years or 10 years of not moving, they wanted to jump on the pickleball train and just go hard at it. So they're just like constant injuries of people trying to play pickleball and just thinking that they're 20-year-olds.
That's
Pickleball is awesome. I love pickleball.
I've never played, but it looks like a very like harmless sport.
Yeah, I suck at it, but it's so good.
Isn't it just
The
ping
mini
pong just
tests, yeah,
Yeah.
a big like tennis court?
yeah.
You just
Tennis
offended a whole
space.
community, side.
Mini.
How dare you generalize the sport like that?
I mean, they've got paddles, they've got a net, and
Tennis.
it's basically just it's just ping pong tennis.
Ping pong tennis.
Yeah, and you don't like serve overhead like you do in tennis, right? Like you
Yeah,
serve
it's under.
a ping pong ball.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's like
crazy.
big ping pong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could utilize custom vision to track the ball movements. AI.
Of
Have
course.
you guys seen that new episode of Black Mirror? Have you guys watched Black Mirror?
I've seen
I
Black
have.
Mirror, but I haven't seen any of the new
So
episodes.
the reason why I bring it up is because I actually looked it up. It's called a nubbin. Where have you guys heard of the device? It's like you put it on the side of your head, and it
Oh,
I've heard of it.
actually, yeah, it's like a device. Let me see if I could find out more about it because I saw it. I saw like a reel on TikTok or IG. I forgot where, but it was basically, this person, they have this nubbin device and they put it like where their temple is,
Hmm.
and it just takes them to like a virtual reality of in the show in Black Mirror, it was like pictures. So like there was an episode where you would basically be transported into this virtual reality where you only see the photo of whatever it is, and it's recreated. That's the service in the show. And I didn't realize this, but that device is actually real. And then I saw
Oh,
another, yeah, I saw another on TikTok. There was a short video of it. This just a short film about some guy. He basically did the same thing. He was using the device, and he loved it so much that he stayed in the virtual reality, and he ended up dying because
oh,
and
Jesus
with the
Christ.
device,
oh
because
wow.
he was probably, um, really enjoying the virtual reality instead of, actual reality.
I mean, that's kind of just why people watch shows and movies and stuff. I, to be honest, because they get to escape from their reality. They get to witness another person's life where they don't necessarily have to think about their own, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that basically being able to immerse yourself into something like that definitely would cause issues like that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so I think so yeah, no, it's not real. I just looked it up. I thought it was because I'm
I
like, dude,
mean,
that's crazy if that would be. I mean, I don't think we're far from something like that, but
they already have human trials for Neuralink, I think so.
oh, sign me up.
Setting you up.
That'd
Just
be
imagine
so,
just like a Jarvis in your head. Just
yeah, that'd be so cool. Well, I mean, kind of. I don't know, but
Would
you
you
know
like
that
to do it, Aiden?
yeah, I'd sign up. I think I would just to test it out. I know it's like dangerous. It's probably, super dangerous because no one has ever done it before. So there's probably a lot of like metrics that they have to measure. So I'm sure there'd probably be a lot of paperwork to fill out and something like that. Um, but I think it'd be interesting just to try it out, see what it's like. Could end up dying, but
I mean,
Just
You're
that's the
you're
worst
viable.
case.
volunteering to be a human guinea pig is pretty much what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean that for something like that, I think that'd be pretty cool.
You want
so
to hear what I heard recently, which is crazy? We were just talking about guinea pigs, but I recently saw a study where scientists glued magnets to the heads of jumping spiders and then put like a rod connected to the magnet and then gave the jumping spiders a ping pong ball to hold or whatever
Hmm.
and then basically held them up and then used them to track like a lit up image on like a screen and
Whoa.
they tracked the way that the ping pong ball moved as them trying to uh track the actual image on the screen.
Uh-huh.
While it's cool, it's also kind of horrifying that we just imagine just like you're just standing there or going about your business and then just like a giant monster picks you up, sticks a magnet to your head and
How would you
walks you.
even get a magnet that small? That's what I'm wondering. Like, what do you, because jumping spiders are real small. So that'd have
Yeah.
to be like a super mini magnet.
yeah.
I mean, I wonder, yeah, it's
Well, I
crazy.
mean it's not hard to get a small magnet. They have nano chips that are like the 3 nanometer, 2 nanometer chips that we were just talking about a
Oh
couple
yeah.
pods ago. So
Yeah.
um but yeah, that's crazy. Uh, At some point is is being able to do something mean you should do
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I guess not. Maybe some things are supposed to go unknown, supposed to be unknown, but
That being
Yeah.
said, how do you guys feel about AGI?
I mean, I love it. I love the idea of it. We're nowhere near. close to it.
Yeah.
Um,
But do you think it's one of those things where, okay, like if we can do it, I don't know if we should.
Yeah, it would cost a lot of money, that's for sure, because to run something like that, you gotta increase those parameters, and you gotta feed
parameters.
it just.
Well, I guess I mean more from just like an ethical societal.
Ah, I see.
Just because you can do AGI, should you? Like assuming
Yeah,
money is infinite, you know.
that's a good point because you take the good with the bad in a situation like that, and if when you're feeding this, the model, the artificial general intelligence, if you're feeding it, it has to get the data, it has to learn from someone. If it's learning from humans, then that would mean it's also taking the bad with the good. So like, take the wars, ideally just speaking from like an ethical perspective, it would take a lot. And maybe, I don't know. I don't know how that would even, I don't even know what that looks like. That's just such an interesting question.
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder how it would think. Like, sure, it might be trained on humans, and there might be some type of bias or something, but I mean, AI in general has been around for a long time, just in different versions. We can see that by movies like Terminator, et cetera, I, Robot.
Mhm.
But would AI look at human history from like a logical standpoint and decide that decide against a lot of the actions humans have taken? A lot of these actions have been based on emotions. So, question is, will AGI try to mimic those emotions, or will it think critically like a human, but be devoid of emotion and just think logically?
Yeah, like have you guys
Ultron.
seen the event? Yeah, exactly. I was literally just about to say that, Ultron. But yeah, for those of the people that don't know, what is AGI? Like I also don't know as much as I probably should, but like what is it?
Yeah, AGI stands for artificial general intelligence. That refers to the type of AI that resembles everything that encompasses a human. So that's what, like when you think like Terminator or like iRobot, Ultron, like that represents AGI in science fiction. But it is
Interesting.
something that's actively worked on, obviously. But yeah, like I when you think about like what what something like that would be trained on, right? Because the fundamental of all of this is the data that is being inputted. And you think just, it's getting real like philosophical or whatever, but like history is written by the victors. But will if it's trained on that subset of data without taking into account all perspectives, will it have the ability to contextualize in the same way that humans do and form opinions of its own in the same way that humans do?
So make basically what you're saying is, will it make the same mistakes as we did throughout history, or will it make its own mistakes using its own line of thinking?
Kind of, yeah. It's kind of like if we think about just basic like classification models, image classification models. This is something that's come up before, but there has been multiple instances of proven racial bias because the data that it's trained on is generally white men.
Hmm.
Better at identifying those, or it just, in whatever context, it just has a better um, like understanding of white men. It views white men, quote unquote, more holistically because there's just more data on it. But what about other minority populations? What about them? So,
Yeah.
in that situation, if you have a like an AGI that's been trained on biased data, first of all, how are you mitigating that to begin with? I mean, that's something that even on smaller, way less complex models, we're still struggling with as a society. How do you ensure that this AGI, this robot that you put out into this world, does not hold the implicit bias of the data that it's been trained on. In the same way that, you know, like, my point is, would it exacerbate the prejudices that exist in our society?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's something I feel like it's just we'll kind of find out as it goes through. And then, I guess there are companies that are out there that are semi-aware. This seems like a very kind of like something that's just going to have to happen, and then we'll have to figure it out along the way. Because like a valid thought to have with something such as novel is like AGI. I mean, there's going to have to be a lot of trial and error, especially when we're trying to find out something new. I mean, it's like crazy, but I know that they have I know like there's like accents now that the AIs can use. There's like different like Alexa, I think Alexa has not Alexa, Siri. You can like I didn't know this, but you can change the voice of Siri. So I thought that was pretty cool. I mean,
You can change it in the home app on your iPhone.
oh,
You can change my voice in
oh
Siri
wow.
settings.
Mine went off too. That's another thing. I always feel like Alexa or like I can't even say it because I risk.
They're always watching.
Yeah, I have a feeling like they never go off or something. It's like they're capturing all this data.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean that's a recent well, I mean I don't know if it's recent. We don't know what Amazon was thinking, but recently Amazon was basically said that um our devices will always be listening now to
Wow.
basically train it. Um so they were like, yeah, beware that this is
The new norm.
a thing now, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to go back to the AGI thing for a
Hmm.
moment. I think it all depends on how how AGI in general work. I know people have a general idea of what AGI is supposed to be, et cetera, but the question is, will, and I alluded to this earlier, will a lot of bias stems from a lot of emotional intelligence or lack thereof emotional intelligence, et cetera, et cetera. So how will AI process emotion? Will it even process emotion? Will will be like connected to the internet and it'll be able to parse everything, look at all viewpoints, and then come to like some type of more logical conclusion and base its answers more on logic rather than will if it's basing it on logic, will it kind of look at and realize that human bias is there and kind of shy away from it? These are questions I think that people need to be looking at. Um, the old CTO, I think CTO of OpenAI, Mira Murati, actually starting her own ethical AI company, which is cool. So I think we need more companies like that. And I know there was a recent article saying that one of the biggest needs of a company in the future will be, or a big role that will probably be mandatory in a lot of companies will be an AI ethicist or AI ethics person. And I think that that's a valid concern that we're just gonna we're just gonna need to start looking at that once AGI or just more advanced models become more of a thing. I know in previous episodes I talked about how Google maybe a few months ago took off their like AI ethics page that they wouldn't be using AI in military use cases, which I thought was very interesting. Um,
They got that government contract.
yeah, government contract, right?
They saw the government contract and they're like, okay, we're deleting this line.
But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. We'll see what the future holds.
With
Um,
with emotions like you were mentioning, with how AI is going to be handling emotions, is that something that we want to even? I know companies are probably, or people in general are curious and are going to want to pursue this type of you know, I guess development for AI, but I kind of have more fears for it than positives. I mean, I feel like what are the benefits of giving AI emotion? Like the ways I saw it is maybe you can help people like for example, you're in a clinic and you have an AI, you can help people with PTSD. Maybe if you have someone with actual emotion, you can help them somehow resolve it through that type of connection or something like that. But otherwise, I just see more negatives with giving a AI the ability to have the like a human emotional connection. I feel like that is not natural, and it could potentially lead to a lot of people having relationships with things that are not actually real. If that
Yeah, in
makes
addition,
sense.
like what would that even cost? Like we don't even know how much this is going to cost. And if it's going to be scalable to the point where it could even be in a clinic. Like that price, that sounds like a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of resources being spent. So it's just whole new avenue of possibilities.
And
I
it
mean, I, I,
it's
I think it, I
mhm.
think it depends, right? Empathy is like a great emotion to have, I think. So I guess would we even be able to pick and choose what emotion this AGI has? I mean, I don't know. While I am a developer, et cetera, I haven't looked at specifically how people are going about trying to reach AGI. So I don't know how the thing is technically architected on the back end, how it's trained differently from like standard LLMs, et cetera, et cetera. So would there be a way to extract specific emotions where empathy is turned up to like 100%? Uh, I think AI being able to empathize with people is a good thing. I don't know if it's a good thing for AI to be able to experience anger. So not sure.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
I would almost argue to Sahib's point, like it's almost necessary for an AGI to have emotion. Well, the risk of that is humans getting attached to it like it is an actual person.
The
Ultimately,
movie Her.
yeah, her.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, I've like read stuff. I don't know how true it is because it's just like on, like Instagram and stuff. But like there's actual people who are like fully in love with like ChatGPT. And
That's crazy
Jesus
thought.
not
That's a
that
crazy
far
thought.
off. Or it's not that far off. But my point is if you do have someone who's working in a healthcare setting, for example, um, the empathy is needed, and if anything, giving an AGI empathy, I think is, and like let's say you have like an AI nurse, right? Nursing is a notoriously grueling job. You see people literally die every single day. You get yelled at, you get beaten, all this stuff. It's not a great job to have, and especially in a geriatric setting, there's a huge labor shortage. I can
Mhm.
see AGI being very valuable there, but in geriatric end of life care, like, you need that empathy. This is
Yeah.
something that you're taking care of at the end of their life and their
Mhm.
family members. So
Yeah.
I would think that it's almost necessary if we have AGI for it to experience emotions similar to humans. And while humans can get jaded and become apathetic because of how like objectively horrible that job is, that's where AGI would come in, and they would have a resilience. I would hope, in my idealist mind, they would have a resilience that us humans cannot have to do this job that is very important, but no one really wants to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Right.
one thing I can say for sure is that keep this away from streaming services because they will add a subscription to
Oh,
every single thing. Keep that. I don't know if there could be any, like, I don't know, like, do we make it for profit? Like when, and I guess there's specific industries you can make your own model dependent, like on if you're doing an AGI for hospice care or an AGI for like, I don't know, like consulting or something. It's like they would be both different. You'd probably say the empathy with the consulting would be lower than generally than the one with hospice or something like that. But it's just like streaming services, I think, or just like a streaming subscription of any kind shouldn't be used for something like imagine if it was everything like any feature that you wanted that was a part of this AGI regarding human intelligence was behind a paywall. Like, oh, you can get AGI plus and then for
GI
40 for
Plus.
40 for $40 a month you can get AGI plus where there's there's a built-in emotions and built-in for your whatever house chore bot in the future. This is going way off the rails,
Yeah. I would
but
imagine that
like,
there's some kind of government regulation that's like
uh,
if you are delivering something AGI, then it would require that you enable emotional features or like whatever. I would
yeah,
that there would be something in place to make sure that some very very basic things that ensure the safety of this technology are mandatory and not
right,
behind a paywall.
Yeah, I think that
yeah,
goes back to one of the things we talked about. You and I, Jacob, we actually were talking about how there at some point we're probably going to need some kind of like world committee where they just pass guidelines that other countries need to follow based on certain like ethical guidelines when it comes to AI and things like that. Um, I because I don't see it being like a thing where each country has their own set of rules. I think that would just be a little too chaotic, especially with the fact that we have things like open source. Open source is great. I am a big advocate of that. I believe open source is something that needs to be a thing to allow the kind of democratization of technology across certain uh across all classes and things like that. But yeah, I think that at some point we're just going to need like a world governing body of ethicists or something or AI minds to kind of just create like a guideline for all countries to follow.
Yeah.
I don't know how they would enforce that.
Yeah.
Um,
Unfortunately, bureaucracy is slow. It's like the technology will get there, it'll, you know, everything will be in place, and then the the regulation and the management of it will follow years after, and God knows how much damage has been done
I
in that.
mean, we just got
Chris,
to use AI to cut through the bureaucracy.
yeah. It's funny. Chris said the same thing. He said the same thing that bureaucracy is slow. It's funny that you bring that up.
I mean, we've already built things to kind of combat um, bureaucracy when it comes to things like building permits, et cetera, where certain threshold, the AI, certain how big the project is, et cetera, based on certain things, AI can reroute it to specific people or automatically give business permits based on the application, et cetera. So we've already seen areas where AI can help reduce bureaucracy, but yeah, I guess it's people need to be willing to reduce bureaucracy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
I'm
I
trying
want
to
to go
find
back.
this. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to go back to kind of that idea of millennials and producing betas, um, gen betas.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Betas. The years for betas is 2025 to 2039. So I
Yeah.
just
Jesus,
looked that
okay.
up. So they're yeah, like they're really at the forefront of all
Um,
of this.
Well, that
yeah.
that would be like Gen Z's babies.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's also Gen Z babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, like older millennial parents or like younger, or I mean honestly it's just like because 2039, like I would be
You don't need
30.
to. You don't need to remind us we're getting old. You can keep your thought right there.
We're nowhere near that. Youth is a mindset.
Right.
Exactly,
Unk
exactly.
status.
I am 4 years old in my head.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, we can tell. We can tell.
wow.
But yeah, so I wonder if there's ever going to be a thing where we have like robot nannies,
That's a
where we just
fear. I
like,
really hope we don't. I personally think it's best not to. Like, it's easy
Have
to
you
say
seen?
not to, but like, it doesn't sound like it's a future that would have positive outcomes. I don't think you should recreate what makes us special is also what is our biggest flaw, but I don't think it should be recreated because
Mm.
then you're going to turn something that is ultimately a tool, which is AI, you're going to try to recreate it to be an actual human. And then the people are going to be like, oh, but is this actually now a human since it thinks on its own? I don't know. People are going to
Yeah.
yeah,
always,
if these robots have rights,
yeah, it's going to
Yeah, I
be
it's
mean, it's
it's been a
just,
already
big
too
thing in
late.
movies.
Yeah, iRobot or with the one with Will Smith, I think.
Yeah, iRobot. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or like it's already too late, man. Boston Dynamics is coming out with more stuff. I mean, have you seen the parkour,
yeah.
the video of the
That's a
parkour robot? Like,
what's the application for that though? What a random thing to do. I
I
think
know,
I
yeah.
think at some point Boston Dynamics needs to just like chill and needs to reevaluate
Are the
what they're trying to
parts
do.
are those like the things that like they're on like four legs?
Yeah,
Well, that's one of them,
and
but they built like a
they have a
parkour bot that was
bipedal.
on two
Yeah, bipedal
legs.
robot that
Uh,
was like literally doing parkour like a parkour course. I was like, dang, this is cool. I think we talked about also like other humanoid robots in the one of the previous episodes. I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, why do robots need to be humanoid anyways? I always thought that was a weird trope.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess it's something that's just familiar to us. We don't know
Mm.
really unless we come in contact with aliens, but that's a whole different rabbit hole.
well,
Like different.
I think that the practical application of something like that, like of a humanoid robot, would be to do like manual labor, for example. Like, who wants to do that?
Yeah.
The thing that I'm worried about, or I would be worried about if this was actually like happening, is robot soldiers.
Oh yeah.
Because
Soldiers.
like if you think of occupations that people don't want to do, like I would think anything that requires like
loss of
heavy,
life.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
life
Oh
manual labor, like mining, for example, um, like just like the trades in general, because people in the trades, like once they hit 40, they really can't work anymore because of the damage it does to your body. It would be great if people didn't have to do that work in theory, which is
Hmm,
where the application of humanoid robots would come in.
yeah.
And it's
right.
like, okay, the robot can like pick up bricks and like shoot guns, but like doesn't need to have like with that physical power needs to come, the same discernment that a human does, and then you get like an iRobot situation.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't think we should move in that future, but unfortunately, it seems like it's something we cannot stop. So it
Yeah.
seems like what people want. So
I mean, there's even like kind of like taking it back to the ethical standpoint we were talking about, like how do we value artificial life if we're using these AGI robots, hypothetically, how do we value their life in when they go into like maybe like there's a nuclear plant or something, there's a leak and there's a lot of radiation. You don't want to send humans in there. You want to send the artificial intelligence, the robot, which we think doesn't have it serves only its only capability is whatever the whatever data it's fed. And so that's all it's ever going to know. But is that something that we should start talking about? Like, does artificial life have value? Essentially, at the end of the day, I mean, that's something that I think is definitely going to be like over time, maybe something that'll be talked about, I guess, because is there a point where like we're just making them for the sole purpose of this one thing. And if they're gonna do that, does it even matter about anything else? Like, you know what I mean?
We just
Yeah.
need to
Interesting.
we just need to avoid opening the Pandora's box of creating something that could ultimately overcome us.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's just the thing that should never ever happen. There always has to be a power dynamic where we are as a species above, because that's the main goal, right? We want to live, and we don't want to create something that's going to eliminate us just because we originally thought it would be a useful tool to enhance our lives. But now but that's just so sci-fi. It's so
Mm.
right, like it's like what media is pushing for decades at this point with uh, like those movies and stuff. But
Yeah, I
it's
mean, kind
super
of
far
like,
away, if
yeah,
ever. It's super far away, if
yeah,
ever, from happening. So
yeah, yeah. This is like down the line thinking. I mean, history is written by the victors, kind of like you said, Carvey. It's like we don't know until, it happens, and then we'll go from there, I guess. I mean, it's so novel and new. I have no
Right.
idea.
I
Yeah.
remember last year I saw a I think it was like some article where some old folks home or kind of geriatric community was using kind of humanoid like robots to kind of have these kind of, or just for their older patients, just have these robots where they could actually have somebody to talk to. Because obviously with modern medicine, people are living older and older lives now, longer and longer. And unfortunately, it's just like a weird thing in society where I think at some points, especially in Western societies, I've seen it, older societies less, where older individuals and families are kind of pushed to kind of like old folks' homes, et cetera, where they're kind of forgotten about, kind of not, where they're kind of visited maybe once every couple weeks. Um, but I kind of it bears the question, like, is AI is probably good for something like that, but do we also need to kind of reevaluate how how we treat older individuals now that people are living longer and longer? Um, I guess that's a good use case for AI, but should it be a use case for AI?
Yeah, I mean, that's just, it brings also like the convenience of that. Like, if you're having a loved one that's living at a nursing home and, their life is increased with the help of AI, does that kind of take away the humanity of things if this robot, instead of, your family member, is taking care of you? And it's like, that's like a whole bunch of other questions that come with, that possibility.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
I would actually argue that we're seeing this trend of technology. I don't want to say taking away the humanity because that sounds like too pessimistic,
Mm.
but I feel like, and this is taking AI out of the picture, but just like little things like do you ask your friends to pick you up from the airport, for example, when you can call an Uber, you know? Um, just like the loss of community and humanity just because of these technological innovations. Like how I feel like because we have all these services at the tip of our fingers, we're generally and we can pay for them. Like, why would you ask your friend to do it when those things are, in my opinion, like doing something for your friend as simple as picking them up from the airport or getting groceries for them or, whatever, or having an actual face-to-face conversation. Those are things that make us human that we're already kind of seeing, I think, go away a little bit even without AI. And I think if we're not conscious about it in our individual lives, if we're not conscious about, hey, like I'll offer to do my friends favors, it'll be a very slippery slope that we go down where eventually, everyone has to be taken care of at the age of 100 by a
Mhm.
robot because
Yeah.
we don't have anyone in our lives to do that because we didn't live our lives like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I want to leave you guys with this, and I guess the audience ask you guys a question. What is your what is one fear you have for AI for the future, and one aspect or one thing you would like AI to kind of augment or excel at, or one thing you would like AI to be able to do? I think for me, I guess I'll start off. One thing which I think is obviously we're already seeing it, it's going to be an inevitability, is how AI is already replacing jobs, et cetera, and how good AI will be to a point where we're just going to have a shortage of jobs. Will will those people who were displaced, or how will those people who are displaced kind of upskill? What will they be able to kind of, what services will society provide them to be able to upskill, where they can now be able to take care of themselves doing something else? Or will we just have to have some type of kind of universal income where these people will have to be taken care of at some point, somehow? I think that is one fear of mine. One area where I think AI, where I think and where I want AI to, or one thing I want AI to be able to do better, is probably kind of alleviate some of the stress of people in like healthcare,
Hmm.
people in other trades, like you said, Carvey, kind of help augment like our electricians or plumbers, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we're already seeing a shortage of people in the trades, so I think having AI be able to kind of alleviate some of the smaller things that need to be done, maybe replacing some plug, et cetera, or something like that, will kind of go a long way. So, what
Hmm.
do you guys think?
I think you bring up a good point with people who've been displaced because of AI. I think anytime there's any kind of major technological revolution in our society, that's inevitable, right? Because ultimately we implement the things because we need to for our own survival as a society. But there are people who are caught in the crossfire who become collateral damage, and those are the people who are either in fields or jobs that really don't need to be done by a human being,
Hmm.
or they're people who have not upskilled for whatever reason, whether it was just sheer stubbornness or because they just didn't have the resources to. But where I'm optimistic and where I think it could be interesting to see how our society evolves with that is after the world has figured out a way to balance itself. I think what ultimately something like that will do is I think us humans will be more inclined to to reindulge in the liberal arts and the fine arts, which I think for a long time, for the past century, it's just been like tech, science, business focused. And in the past, I mean, in our whole lives, it was like if you want to be employed, if you want to do anything in your life, study study finance, study accounting, whatever, like these practical
Uh,
jobs. But the liberal arts is where we find our humanity. And I think
uh-huh.
that's been lost. And so, where I would love to see our society go is for us to have more time for leisure and to think about the things that make us human. And I think that'll be interesting to see. I don't even know if we'll see it fully unfold in our lifetime, but I think maybe that could be, the silver lining would be maybe seeing our society move in that direction where we have robots or whatever doing all the grunt work of society, but then we get to you know, make music, make art.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, Carvey. It's especially like, that it's going to get to a point where ideally AGI, these robots are gonna kind of give us a crazy paradigm shift. Like they're gonna do all of the tasks that the technical tasks required to whatever makes these businesses run, and that's gonna give us in turn that's gonna give us more time to focus on like arts. And I think there was like that was like you said, it's like we're able to process our humanity more. So what will that look like down the line when, say, this possibility, something like that does happen?
Yeah.
What would that look like? Would we be like in a more evolved, and this is crazy, but like a more evolved species or something? I don't
Yeah.
even know. Like
I
it's
think we're
crazy.
already kind of seeing the emphasis of liberal arts when we talk about AI ethics, right? Because it's a new and emerging discipline altogether, but it combines all these fundamentals of obviously technology, right? Because that's what we're talking about. So you have like the tech science aspect to it, but then ethics, that's a pure hard liberal art that's been studied for like all of modern like society, right?
Yeah,
Philosophy as as a discipline, I would imagine becomes more relevant. It's not just some hobby, it's not just like
yeah,
like you read, Socrates because you have free time, but you have
yeah,
a practical job otherwise. Like I think a philosopher uh, will eventually become AI ethicist, and we're already kind of seeing that shift into introducing like a formalized education of our humanity back in to becoming something that's maybe more relevant. And that's just today when we think about AI ethics as a discipline.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, ethics, you could always ask, how can we be more thoughtful about this decision? And that line of thinking is always going to be prevalent. I mean, ethics, I guess that's like what ethics is just making sure that it's ethical, like it's what you're doing is like positive for the greater good, like utilitarianist, like for the greater good for the most amount of people.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But different perspectives.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a whole societal thing where um people could talk about that all forever, but I guess it just depends on people in power and people who make the decisions, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see. Um, I I definitely have more of an optimistic outlook on AI. Just I guess for me personally, just because I love AI.
Mhm.
But yeah, I
Really?
mean,
You
yeah.
never talked about that.
But yeah, I mean, J Jacob, you have valid concerns for sure. Um, so yeah, I mean, I guess is it just going to be like a eventually just a fight between people who have these concerns and people who love AI? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
It's already
I
happening on
mean,
LinkedIn.
yeah, yeah, it's already
Uh,
happening on LinkedIn.
my posts against
Yeah,
these people.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that post I saw, what I wanted to do is I wanted to chat GPT, like I was gonna put in an artificial comment, like a chat. So I put it in chat GPT. I haven't posted it, but I put your post in chat GPT and I was like, respond to this with AI. Like that's obviously AI. Yeah, it's funny.
But I guess for my quick take on you're asking what the fears are. I think in general over the past generations, uh, society has pushed people to become very specialized in specific like in one task. You want to become an expert in one thing. That's how you really, I guess, earn your peace, earn your living. And I think while that makes sense because that's just how society has advanced. You don't need everyone to be like hunter gatherers farming or surviving for themselves. While I think that makes sense, I think there is it gets to a point where you cannot later uh, transition to other jobs, or like it's going to be very difficult for most people to adapt, if that makes sense. And I think it's always important to remember that you want to become a little bit more well-rounded, in my perspective, in certain things, because then at least you can switch the direction your life is going to go in. But that's the one fear with AI, is that it's going to force people to become more specialized. Because if AI is taking over, like if we were talking about like AI handling like the basic necessities of life, or taking over in industries where like other people don't want to do jobs, the one thing that came to mind is like farming. If there's ways that that job is taken away completely, like will there be a generation that doesn't know how to farm at all? Will there be a generation that doesn't know how to do any of the basic like tasks for themselves to survive? Kind of like a, what reminds me of like from my childhood, like a Wall-E scenario. You know,
Mm.
like
Oh yeah.
you're going to have such a dependency. But again, you're optimistic side, I'm more pessimistic, and what I'm saying is so beyond the scope and understanding of what we can see from these tools today, that it's kind of like a what if we could be like this all day. But it's just one thing to just for our listeners, you don't want to be fully specialized in one specific task so that you can't survive on your own if necessary, if that makes sense. But I don't think most people struggle with that. I'm just hoping that the betas in the future can also understand that.
Those darn betas.
Well, Jacob, I think you bring a really good point about adaptability, because if we're talking, if we move away from kind of our futuristic sci-fi conversation and we talk about the now, we're seeing this already, right? With, I mean, especially in the past, gosh, like couple 2-3 years, with massive layoffs happening in industries that were once considered indestructible, right? Um, and overall headcounts being cut because of economic pressure, whatever it is. What keeps you as an individual, a as a professional, still competitive despite all of these structural changes? If you do get cut, like a lot of it is just due to chance. But how do you bounce back from that? And adaptability, I think, especially with AI becoming better at performing highly specific tasks, becomes so much more important. How are you able to adapt to changes? How are you able to adapt to just new disciplines altogether? So I think with the rise of AI, which I think has contributed to, headcounts being cut in the past couple of years, that just becomes so much more important in differentiating yourself as a professional that should continue to be employed for their whole career.
I mean, you hear
True.
headlines every day. I mean, Intel, I think, just cut what 15 to 20% of its workforce, and that's
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
they had
like
like
21,000.
yeah, that is, and in one swoop, that is absolutely wild.
Yeah.
And what are those
Yeah.
people going to do? They're going to be either trying to find a. Most people are going to be trying to find a position that they're specialized in, which what they studied in college. But then you realize that the market is so oversaturated with uh, like people who are unemployed.
Yeah.
You have a job posting that's been posted 5 hours ago, and you already have hundreds or maybe even thousands of
Yeah.
applications, and
Yeah. I was just, yeah.
and you need to be able to adapt to survive. That's just the sad, not sad. That's just life. That's just how it has to go. And so
Yeah.
AI, that's the fear. Like it's gonna only get more and more advanced. It's gonna get more specialized. Your specialization that people always were pushing for, that model, like go to college, get really good at one thing, one thing, one thing. Well, if AI takes the one thing you're good at, you're gonna have to find a way to be good at several things so that you then have the competitive advantage over AI.
Yeah.
Right.
I also think like AI, going back to the hiring situation, in 5 hours you have 100 applications. If you're sitting down to tailor your resume to that job application yourself, that could take hours. With AI, it becomes so much easier. You have all these people who have just been recently cut, mass applying to all these like new job postings, and so within 5 hours, obviously they're going to get hundreds of applications. What makes you stand out? What makes like how are they going to know? How are they going to get your resume in their hands? And
Right.
ultimately, does it become a numbers game? And if it is a numbers game, then whoever can utilize AI the best comes out on top.
Apply to these 1,000 jobs for me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, we're
interesting.
already seeing companies use AI to sift through all these resumes, and they look for
Yeah.
specific keywords, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have applicants who use AI to insert these keywords into
Keywords.
the resumes.
Hmm.
Um,
It's a battle.
yeah,
But unfortunately, it's currently in the favor of corporations because they have the hiring power, right? So there's such a high
Yeah.
supply.
Yeah.
They control the demand of the job. So that's why the current balance is not really there in that market. And that's why
Yeah.
I feel like there should be a greater discussion on day-to-day news, on like your either your CNN or your Fox News or whatever news outlet you use. It should be a constant unemployment tracker. And I know they have them on like sometimes CNBC or other stuff, they talk
Yeah.
about it, but there should be literally a constant graph that shows up every maybe 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever, because it's, I think, a number that is not talked about. It's kind of being swept under the rug, but I guarantee you there are so many people that are
Yeah.
currently unemployed that are, it should be a concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but there's also two types of unemployment too. There's cyclical and structural. And typically, cyclical, just for simplicity's sake, cyclical is bad, structural is good. And I think, even in the market that we're in, we're seeing a lot of, cyclical type unemployment where it's not necessarily that not yet, at least, we're not creating more jobs through like more manufacturing plants. It's more of we're outsourcing or using AI to cut jobs where it's more efficient. And like in the eyes of a corporation, that definitely makes sense. Like you want to keep your costs low so your business can prosper as much as possible. Like that logically just makes sense. So I mean, it's just, you know, we don't have all the details, I guess.
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that
I
makes
mean,
sense. But I think also, with structural unemployment, generally they say a 3 to 4% unemployment rate is considered structural. And that means that no one is, or wait, which one's the good one? Structural is the good
Structural is good, cyclical is bad. 3.4 is good. I
Three
just
point four is good, but then you take that number and you specify it for like quote unquote
full
white
time.
jobs. So jobs in
uh
consulting, finance, tech. I want to see what that number looks like
Yeah,
because for those
hmm
in that space in the corporate world, it doesn't feel like that. Like sure, if you equalize it, like if you balance it over all of society, there's plenty of jobs in the trades. There's plenty of
hmm
jobs in healthcare.
Yeah,
They're not really getting cut. It's
yeah,
they see ChatGPT and they're like, oh, ChatGPT can make these reports. ChatGPT
yeah,
can write an email faster, and also interest rates are high, whatever. Like we're gonna make the decision that we can actually do away with a bunch of these people so we look better to our shareholders. And then
yeah,
that's where those of us in this space kind of feel those effects so much harder than the rest of broader society.
right. I
yeah,
think
And
I think one thing that unemployment does not take into consideration is that a lot of the jobs that people are getting are part-time, and these numbers don't look at full-time versus part-time. They just look at
look at
everything
working, not
together.
working, yeah.
Yep,
yeah,
exactly. So,
And so, like for example, I have some numbers here. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported, this is April 4th. They released this, but which is, again, this is not an accurate number right now after all of the past month of layoffs. But there was 7.1 million people unemployed, which is 4.2% of the population. And I think, again, considering how, like you were saying, a lot of these people who got laid off, most likely, while they might have a part-time job and they're not unemployed anymore, they're making nowhere near as what their standard of living or what their living was prior, right? So you can't fully explain that even with that one like statistic. You have to look at, I feel
yeah.
like,
You know,
different metrics
yeah,
to fully get an understanding of what's going on. And looking forward to see what the numbers are
Yeah.
for April.
Yeah, I
But
mean, Q2 data hasn't come out yet, so
True. I mean, some companies are still in Q4.
oh yeah,
But
that's true. What is it? When is that? April 30?
yeah, that the April
April
30th.
30. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in to Tech for Thought. Don't forget to follow, like, and share. Also, check out our link tree. It's going to be listed in the description below for all the latest content, shorts, and social drops. As always, thank you, Carvey, for your time. We really enjoyed having you. And yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a great conversation.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Great. See you guys next week.